Muted. Unmuted.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sybil O'Malley. I am Director of Communications and Community Engagement for the California Alliance for Arts Education. And I want to welcome you to our webinar, Arts Education Strategies in California LCAPs. The webinar today is going to run about 45 minutes. And we'll introduce you to a new document of the same name, Arts Education Strategies in California LCAPs, which gathers examples of how school districts in California are increasing access to the arts in their schools and closing opportunity and achievement gaps for foster youth, English language learners, and low-income students. To put together this document, the California Alliance collaborated with Arts for All and LA County's Arts for LA and LA County's Arts for All. And I'm delighted to have a member of the staff from each of these organizations. We have Christina Pacheco, who's Director of Programs for Arts for LA, Megan Kirkpatrick, who's Senior Manager for Arts for All, Sandy Sufert, who's an advocacy coach with the California Alliance, and myself. And I just want to take a moment to thank that team, Christina, Megan, Sandy, who helped to put together this document and have been working on it last night and moments before we started. And I also want to thank Melissa Nyo in the Alliance office, who's manning the controls today and also helped get this together for you. We're really excited. We have two special guests with us. Lauren Shelton, who I am told is no longer a VAPA resource teacher. She's now the VAPA coordinator. Congratulations, Lauren, at Chula Vista Elementary School District. And Pat Wayne, who's program director at Create California and who has been instrumental in the work that the California Alliance did in Orange County. And so Lauren and Pat, we're going to interview them and get a little bit of context about two of the LCAPs that we selected for this document. So if we could just move along to our next slide. And I'm assuming you can hear me okay, yes? Okay, great. So we're delighted to have you. We have 58 people on the line. We're delighted to have you, and I wanted to just give you a quick tour of our webinar tool and talk about how you can participate. So if you take a look up in the top right-hand corner, there should be a GoToWebinar control panel. And there's a couple things you can do on there. Probably the most important is to ask a question. You'll see if you go down a bit, there's a question tab, and if you click on it, there's a place where you can enter your question. And we'll be answering those verbally. We'll probably pause throughout the presentation and answer some, and then we'll have a section at the end. So everybody take a look there and make sure you know where the questions tab is. There's also a handouts tab, and that's below the questions tab, and it has 5 documents that we're going to be talking about today, including this brand new arts education template final, which is the last one. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's the second one. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the second one in the list. So that's the document that we're going to be talking about today. So you can download that now or anytime during the presentation if you want to take a look at it. The third way you can participate is by taking a poll. So before we dive into our presentation, I wanted to gather a little bit of information about the people we have on the phone with us. So Melissa, if you could start the first poll, we want to understand how you're connected to arts education. So if you could just take a moment and fill in the one that best describes how you're connected to arts education and to schools. Great. So I see a lot of people are voting, and we're gonna, just a moment, we'll give another moment for people to weigh in on our poll. Great. So it looks like most of our friends on the line today are community arts partners, and then followed by teachers, school administrators, and parents. And I'm sorry to see we have 0% students. But that'll help us kind of in thinking about the way we're talking about this issue and understanding your connection. So the second poll that we want to do is to just find out how familiar you are with California's school funding law. That's called the California or the local control funding formula. So we just want to get an idea. Have you heard of it? Have you not heard of it? Are you way too familiar with it? And that'll help us again to just get an idea of who's in the audience. Great. So go ahead. We'll just collect a few more responses. If you haven't, just hit one of those that best describes you. Great. Oh, great. So we've got 36% are pretty familiar, and 32% have heard about it. So this is a pretty savvy crowd. And then we have a even split between not at all and way too familiar. So that'll be great as we turn it over to our next section. If we could bring up the next slide, I'm going to just give you a snapshot of what we're going to do so you know what's in store. And then I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter. Great. So first, we're going to give you a little background of California school funding policy, local control funding formula. We're going to talk you through some of the resources that these three organizations, Arts for LA County's Arts for All, and the California Alliance for Arts Education have collaborated on. Then we're going to look at this new document we're releasing with LCAPs from 2015-16. And then we're going to do 2 case studies. That's when we're going to interview Lauren and Pat and then talk about next steps for how to take some of these ideas and bring them back to your community. So great. I want to introduce our first presenter. It's Christina Pacheco from Arts for LA. And let's see if we have Christina here.
Hi, Sybil. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Great. Well, thank you, Sybil. We'll move to the next slide and talk a little bit about where we've come from and where we are to date around this really important policy and our response as education advocates to it. So it's been a journey. It's been a road from 2015 till now in response to the local control funding formula. And over the past 3 years, we've seen the impact of the local control funding formula, or LCFF, as I'll refer to it moving forward, and the creation of LCAPs. And, you know, we love our alphabet soup, but LCAPs being the local control and accountability plans. And we'll talk a little bit about that since we have a mix of experience or understanding of this policy for those on the line. As indicated on the poll, many of you have some familiarity with this policy, but the local control funding formula and district LCAPs as something that started in implementation in 2013 and 14 when Governor Brown signed into law this really critical new policy that dramatically shifted the way that we looked at education policy and funding in the state of California. As education and arts education advocates, we looked at this policy and wanted to find a way to respond and be a solution partner with districts as this policy unfolded, and districts including traditional school districts as well as local educational agencies, which qualify as a number of other educational institutions that also qualify under this policy. So there are 2 main components of the local control funding formula. The first was the funding structure, which you can see represented on the graphic on the left-hand side of your screen. As a result of Governor Brown signing LCFF into law, there was an increase in funding from the state for all educational agencies and school districts in California. This was a really critical change. Essentially, all school districts were going to receive more funding. And then there was a stratified system that also increased funding for school districts serving any level of high-need students. High-need students being English language learners, foster youth, or students that were of low socioeconomic status that qualified for free or reduced lunch. So you'll see that represented in the graphic on the left, and happy to, we have additional resources offline for those of you who are wanting to understand a bit more about the formula and funding distribution, but for the sake of today, we'll just kind of speak to that very brief overview. On the right-hand side, this is the second part of the policy, which was the requirement of school districts to create LCAPs, or again, local control and accountability plans, that met 8 state priority areas, which you'll see represented in the blue circle on the right. The idea around this was that there were these critical areas that school districts should address in a 3-year strategic plan with specific metrics and outcomes, actions, and services that would help students benefit in a number of these 8 areas. Emphasizing here the critical role of community engagement and parent committees and student voices as well. And we felt, and as did the entire arts education community when this policy was enacted, that arts education could be a solution partner to reach all of these 8 state priority areas. And we knew it was critical to respond quickly to this policy and act, again, as solution partners as this planning process unfolded. We've seen really critical areas where truly the arts can make a difference, especially around community engagement as we think about the ways that students engage in their school environments, in the climates that the schools produce, and the ways that parent voices and student voices are integrated. We know that the arts can play a really critical role in developing those priorities in districts using the arts as a strategy to reach those priorities. So we're still in the throes of that, and these tools that I'll reference in the coming slides are some ways that we've responded to this policy since 2013. So moving on to the next slide, we wanted to provide some historical context for those of you who might be new as to what were some of the other tools and resources that were created along the lines and along the road from 2013 to now. Some of the first tools created were the Leave Behind flyer that you'll see on the left-hand side, which addresses how arts education met each state priority aim, and the 2014 Arts Education LCAP template on the right, and other tools like the sample letters to school board members that serve both community advocates and district leaders in writing the arts into these plans. So these are just a few of the resources that were initially created. I want to speak just briefly to the Arts Education LCAP template, which was created by Arts for LA, Arts for All, and the California Alliance as a response and an effort to partner with districts to craft language that fit the state priority areas. And this was before any LCAPs were created. That template was created with a group of district leadership and community nonprofit partners intended to serve as a resource as we were all in that beginning stage of creating these documents in districts, wanting to come to districts as a parent or as a community advocate, as a teacher, or if you even were a district administrator internally, to have some places to start since these LCAPs were brand new to everybody. So advocates in some of our first responses to these tools were able to take these tools to meetings with district leadership or into parent committee meetings to have a jumping off point for discussions of arts inclusion in new planning documents. It's important to note again that the planning process was new for everyone. And 2014 was the first year anyone had to develop this type of plan in the new structure. We've also seen that the template structure that the state is required of districts has changed over time, and as such we are evolving with the tools so that we can continue to be those solution partners to district leaders in the community. And we'll move to the next slide. In addition to some of the resources, there's also been some interesting research conducted to understand how districts have responded to the opportunity of LCFS. In 2014, we surveyed here in LA County all 81 school districts, and found that about 77% of districts in 2014 included the arts in their plans to varying degrees. This was a really promising statistic which helped us to gauge the state of arts inclusion in district planning. Although the depth of investment varied from district to district, this was really helpful information. Being that we're now in 2016, we don't yet have an updated statistic, but it was a good starting place. The next slide, you'll see similarly, advocates in Orange County also conducted LCAP research after the first year of planning in 2014. And roughly equivalent to LA County, Orange County saw that 75% of their district LCAPs mentioned the arts. Again, in these first few years, it was critical to get a grasp of investment and come together as an advocacy network to create tools we could all use to advance arts investments in districts throughout California. What I think about these research pieces here is it's an evidence that the tools and you as advocates in the community are succeeding. You are making a difference, and we see that in these initial drafts, and we know that anecdotally through conversations and through other ways that we're seeing investments in the LCAPs that we'll reference later on in today's webinar. We do hope that over the next months and years that these investment statistics rise to 100%, that of course we see every district in the state of California, including the arts in their LCAPs, as a critical strategy and an investment to seeing students succeed in all priority areas and in all aspects of their journey as a student. In the next slide, the final tool that I'll note for us is the 5 examples of arts education in district LCAPs document that was produced by the California Alliance in 2015, just the next year later. While the arts education template was best thinking before actual LCAPs were created, this 5 examples document pulled actual district examples with verbatim language together, something that we hadn't seen before. And in the next slide, you'll see just briefly what the layout of that was. Now, and you'll see it was actual district language, and we began to understand, how could we as an advocacy community learn from one another, pull, a document that's really specific to one district, but begin to find ways that we can translate the strategies that one district is using and learn from those examples and begin to integrate that learning in other districts throughout California and begin to make a bridge of connection and communication between these great strategies that different districts were rolling out in their communities. Now in 2016, we continue to see new and exciting investments in LCAPs. We must continue to evolve, I think, as the policy continues to evolve and change, and LCAP plans are updated yearly. So now to talk about where we are now in 2016 with the new art strategies in California LCAPs, the third in this suite of LCAP tools, I'll introduce Sandy Supert, who will tell us more about the new tool. So welcome, Sandy.
Thanks, Christina. Can you hear me okay? All right,
Sure
okay, great. I'm really excited to help debut the arts education strategies in California LCAPs, which is really the third in a suite of tools. This tool is really the next iteration of those resources that Christina shared. And in this resource, we drew examples from LCAPs from 16 school districts throughout California. Now, what we did in order to find that information at first is we reached out to our district partners in December to get examples of the arts in their LCAPs, and also we culled public records using search words such as the arts, BAPA, STEAM, and so on. Now, once we identified 4 key districts that demonstrated a variety of aims, we also searched for other districts that had the same or very similar goal, but used different actions and services and measures. The reason we did this is we felt that this would help round out the thinking on any particular goal and would be more meaningful to districts with varying needs and demographics. So let me take you on a little tour through the document. So you'll see at the top there's an aim. So for this particular school district, which is Burbank Unified School District in Los Angeles County, the aim was to increase student participation in the arts. And so you'll see that there's the box on the left which will list the goal, and down below the particular state priorities. Those are those 8 priorities in the LCAPs that Christina talked about. And to the right, in order to meet that goal, there are particular actions and services that this district has outlined that are, very clear and specific to that district, but definitely could be ideas for other districts as well. If you follow the arrow to the right, you'll see the expected annual measurable outcomes, which are those measurable outcomes of what success looks like in meeting those action services. Down below, what you'll see is strategies from across California. Now, what we did is, as I mentioned, we looked up other school districts to see, who had a similar goal or even the exact same goal, and how they addressed that issue. So we felt that that would really round out the thinking on that issue. Can you have the next slide? Okay, so these are some of the elements of the tool, and many of these I mentioned, and I won't necessarily read through this list, but one of the things I wanted to include was that the strategies listed in this document are not exhaustive by any means. They literally are real examples from real LCAPs. But one interesting thing we did notice, however, when we were looking through all the data, was that not many districts included parent engagement, which is priority 3 in their LCAPs. So that was possibly an area of growth for the future. Can we get the next slide? All right, as I mentioned before, we had searched for districts that demonstrated a variety of aims that would potentially resonate with other districts. And so these aims are to increase student participation in the arts, reduce the achievement gap for English learners, to deepen student engagement and improve school climate, and lastly, to foster a balanced educational program for all students. And so we really felt that these were kind of overarching aims that would really have a lot of resonance for other school districts. And so now what we'll do is we'll take a closer look at one of these districts, and I'm happy to introduce my friend and colleague Megan Kirkpatrick, who is a senior manager for Arts for All with LA County Arts Commission. So Megan will be interviewing Laura Shelton, and I hand it over to you, Megan.
Unmuted.
Is Megan available?
It looks like Megan's audio may not be on, but Sandy, if you want to jump in and start talking with Lauren, then we can add Megan in a few minutes. How would that be?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
Sure. Okay. So I'm happy to introduce Laura Shelton from Chula Vista Elementary School District. And so Laura, would you tell us a little bit about your role with the LCAP and some of your experiences?
Sure. So I worked with the San Diego Youth Symphony starting in October of 2010. And what we did with the San Diego Youth Symphony is figure out a way that we could help a district return the arts or advocate for the return of the arts in the school district. We're a very large Hispanic population English language learner district. We're the largest elementary school district in California. We have 46 schools and over 30,000 students. And we, as the San Diego Youth Symphony, started an after-school program that really started the development of the importance of the arts in the district. Fast forward to when we started the Visual and Performing Arts Strategic Plan, we noticed that there was a lot of district interest in the arts and how they wanted to bring the arts back to the school district. And through this plan that was led by Arts Empower San Diego and the California Arts Project, we were able to delineate the needs that the district needed to move forward with and vote into the plan and return the arts for all students in Chula Vista. And let me see. When the board approved and adopted this Visual and Performing Arts Strategic Plan, it immediately was lined up with the time of the LCAP. And if you can go on to the next slide, we can look at the LCAP snapshot. So our district LCAP wanted to use, the teachers in our district wanted to have this collaboration time for the implementation of Common Core standards, and so the teachers met on a regular basis in their cohorts with the instructional leadership team. Well, our district board saw the need for this collaboration time, but also wanted to be innovative and figure out a way that we could have the arts across the entire district. And so our superintendent said, well, we are not going to be finding this new money. We're going to utilize the funds that we have for that collaboration time. And if you want to use that collaboration time, then we're going to provide you $200 per student at your school site to hire a visual and performing arts teacher. So some schools that are smaller received maybe $80,000, and some of our larger schools received over $200,000. But this was a great way for us to bring in certificated arts instructors onto our campuses. And it was a pretty easy and seamless move. When we were working on the Visual and Performing Arts Strategic Plan, we realized that there needed to be somebody to implement all of these programs and teachers. And in the plan, they had a Visual and Performing Arts resource teacher, which I left the Youth Symphony and immediately came over to the district to implement all of our programs. And now the district really realized that they wanted to invest more. In June of last year, they increased their $5 million over the next 3 years. So we're having a $15 million investment for visual and performing arts teacher salaries.
That's quite impressive, Lauren. Particularly because of the size of your district, these numbers add up very quickly, right? With 46 schools, that $200 a kid is such an impressive sounding number. What are some of the challenges for implementing that amount of money, that amount of programming across the large district?
We are a decentralized district, meaning every principal works with their school site council to implement the strategies that they feel are necessary for their campus. And so a lot of our schools and school site administrators believe in the arts and they understand the importance of the arts. And other principals are still trying to figure out the process, understand how they can have it on campus. So it isn't a seamless introduction into the district. There are times where principals are having a difficult time. Well, how can I have this rotation on our campus? You know, they're going to be taken out of the classroom. So it's really trying to figure out how to reshift the cultural ideas surrounding arts education. We have schools that say we want arts twice a week for our students every week, and other schools are trying to figure out, well, is that a lot of time out of the classroom? So a big challenge that we're having and we're still working through is the equity and access across the entire district on how often the students do indeed see their visual and performing arts teachers.
So we see that in your expected annual measurable outcomes that you're looking at student engagement. When you talk about counting minutes, is that part of your evaluation plan for the LCAP?
Yes, and we also, when we look at student engagement, we want to look at increased student attendance and students wanting to participate in the arts programs on their campus. So we're still figuring out how we're going to measure all of our LCAP goals and our outcomes. We're trying to, you know, and we're in our first year of implementation. We went from 6 full-time teachers in the visual and performing arts to 68, and we're still looking for 8 full-time arts teachers. So we're still trying to figure out how we are going to be measuring all of our exciting outcomes with this new investment.
So we've been hearing from across the state that filling open VAPA positions is a challenge. Often it's joked because your district took them all.
Yes.
What are some of the strategies to fill those 62 positions that were employed this year? What advice for other districts who are searching?
I went all over our great country. I started to email teacher preparation programs at schools that I knew had a very good arts education program. A lot of the Midwest schools have great music ed programs, dance programs. Arizona, for those of you who are looking for teachers, Arizona programs, U of A, fantastic students coming out of these arts programs. And so I went to conferences and I got to know teacher preparation program managers and deans, and started that. I started that pretty early, knowing that this was coming up about 5 months before I knew that this was going to pass. I started talking to those teacher preparation programs and friends, and Facebook was amazing. I just would put a post on Facebook and it got shared by all of my arts colleagues.
So the district has had a long relationship with the San Diego Youth Symphony. So we're talking about credentialed teachers, but you also have a strong partnership with an community arts partner. How is that changing in this new context?
It's actually providing more opportunities for our students. When I was at the Youth Symphony, I was helping implement these in-school music programs, and we weren't able to focus on expansion of the after-school program as much because we were doing this dual role, after-school arts partner and during the day coordinator for arts programs. So now that I'm here at the district working full-time, working with our arts programs, after school, they're able to have a new site open. So we're able to now have over, I think it's over 350 students participating in the after school program. We went from about 200 to 350. So we're able to focus on completely different parts of arts learning for students.
And was that relationship with the San Diego Youth Symphony something that contributed to the moment of the superintendent saying, we're hiring 70 credentialed teachers?
It was the complete catalyst. It was the reason why it all happened. The San Diego Youth Symphony was instrumental, no pun intended, on getting the district to buy in. When we would come and have a school board meeting performance, there were more than 100 parents in that room, standing room only, and the district started to look, oh my gosh, this is a way for parents to be engaged. Look at these students, look at their growth in such a short amount of time. So it was definitely very important. That was the partnership that started it all.
Knowing that a lot of our audience today are community art partners, what kind of advice do you have for them for the role that they can play in supporting an expansion of arts education in their community district?
I think it's extremely important for arts organizations to partner and join the Visual and Performing Arts Strategic Planning Committees, to go and work with district leaders and provide resources and say, okay, I know that you're trying to move forward and you can use the arts and the LCAP, but be that champion for them. It's not all doom and gloom anymore in California. It's a very exciting time, and the arts partners really have their opportunity to partner with school districts and help reinvigorate the arts through the system in these schools. It's a great time for arts partners to be visible and to be that champion and to work with districts.
So our LCAP is our perennial task. What are you looking to include in your upcoming LCAP, which is probably being written as we speak?
Yes, we're meeting over the next few weeks, but we've realized that we have this huge influx now of teachers, but we need to continue to build our infrastructure. So we're going to be looking for support staff to help provide the professional development and support for these teachers and for the school sites. I am one of one in the VAPA department, and it is necessary for us to have more staff that can go out and really dig in with the schools and help those teachers build these strong programs and provide excellent programming for students.
We have a question from our audience about how the district applies professional development funds for this work. Is that one of your funds?
So it's really not one of our big funding streams. We use it for the collaboration time, but it's not any new funding that we've used. We use professional development funds for professional development for our regular VAPA teachers, but it's not the main funding source for our $5 million investment.
What is the main funding?
It is coming directly for the Common Core implementation part of it in mostly using the funding that is, gosh, it's I don't know, it's kind of, there's a lot of different funding streams that go into it, and that we're able to make it happen.
So thank you, Lauren, for sharing all these insights. And I recognize that what is happening in Chula Vista is really large and rich, and we could go on much longer. And
Of course.
I just want to say that luckily, we as a field have that opportunity to hear more about this. Coming up in 3 weeks, San Diego County is hosting an arts learning exchange for the opportunity to share the strategies across the county for equitably expanding arts education. So I hope we can all make a trip down there. I hear you're a big producer of this event, Lauren. So
yes, and we're very excited to share the work of our district and provide resources and access to our principals, district leaders, and arts partners to dig in deeper.
Excellent. We look forward to that. We will see if there's more questions at the end, but for now I pass it
Unmuted.
for our next.
Great. Thank you, Megan. If we can advance to the next slide. This is Sybil again, and I am going to be talking with Pat Wayne, who is the program director for Create California, about the Anaheim City School District LCAP. And before Pat became the program director at Create California, she was instrumental in the growth of the Alliance's local advocacy network in California, and specifically in Orange County. Pat worked with parents and local arts organizations who wanted to advocate for arts in their schools. And she's going to give us some background about Anaheim City and how this came to be. But she's going to be offering that from not from the district perspective, but from an advocate's perspective. So as somebody working in that system, how she's been effective there. So welcome, Pat.
Hi, Sybil.
Oh, good. I can hear you. So welcome. And I wanted to touch first on something that was a major part of the work that you did in Orange County, and that was the importance of an arts plan as a place to start. And I wanted you to talk about why an arts plan is important and how it relates to LCAP plans.
Well, long before LCSF and the LCAP plans came to fruition about 10 years ago, there was categorical funding that became available. And there was a statewide movement to help districts spend that money wisely. And Orange County specifically had been tracking what Los Angeles had been doing and really embraced this idea of helping the districts first create a plan for how to spend any money for the arts. You know, it's so multi-layered. There's 4 disciplines, one might say 5 with digital media. And if we just go in and start advocating for arts education in general, one of the roadblocks is, where do we start? It just seems huge and overwhelming.
Right.
So by working with a coach and doing one of these plans, it really feeds right into the LCAP, and it successfully helps the district figure out where they are and what they want to do first, what they want to tackle first, and gives them a roadmap for growth.
Great. And just to kind of underline around LCFF, districts are, am I right, districts are required to consult their existing school site plans and arts plans in planning for their LCAP?
Well, if one exists, we are certainly recommending that should be pulled forward into the LCAP, and I think that's one reason why you saw such high percentages of districts putting the arts in their LCAP once that came about, is because they already had a district arts plan.
Great. And if we could go to the next slide just to give people an idea of the work that Pat and Arts Orange County were able to accomplish in Orange County. Pat, do you want to explain this graphic?
Well, this is my attempt to recreate that well-known game Risk, where I'm conquering territory. Just kidding. Anyway, the idea of this was to give everybody a visual, because right out of the box we had 10 districts say they wanted to do arts plans. So it just helped us to track who had was in process, who had a plan, and to come up alongside of them. And we couldn't do everybody at once, so don't worry about the ones that are not orange. In fact, Laguna Beach did their plan last year, and their Magnolia now has a plan. So the districts are moving along. Anaheim City was actually one of the original 10 to do their arts plan back in 2006. But when the recession hit, they and a few others, surprisingly, not many, ended up just kind of shelving the plan while the budget crisis was going on.
Yep. I think that's the case with a lot of districts. They, had good intentions, they had the plan, but and during the budget crisis, it wasn't possible. So talk about how in Anaheim, that arts plan got taken up and they started to rebuild their arts more recently.
Well, a couple things happened. One is that they got a new superintendent, and their new superintendent, Linda, was a strong supporter of arts ed. And what happened in her world was that she got the joy of opening a time capsule at her district, and in it were all these pictures of the Anaheim City student orchestras. And so she knew that the district had once had rich arts happening in their district, and it was really upsetting to her that, like, what happened. And at the same time, we had a land coordinator in place through the California Alliance that was working very strongly with their high school union district that they feed into. And so with all of that going on, a conversation and a meeting happened where we were able to share their plan that they had and to start brainstorming about how they could get back on track and what that would look like.
That's great. And that's been, just to highlight that's been a really effective strategy in Orange County, is taking the opportunity to meet with the superintendent, see where they are on the arts, and meet with them along with a parent to kind of start that conversation. And many times, as you said, they are supportive. And so really advocates could act as a solution partner and say, what are you interested in doing, and how can we support it, and are you aware of this arts plan? So
yes, and just to remind everybody, I don't know if this registered, that Lauren shared in Chula Vista that first they did their arts plan, and then they figured out, okay, what are we going to do first? And so an arts plan is a great place to start, because you aren't right off the bat asking for huge investments. You're just asking for the commitment to do the plan. Right.
And then because we do have a lot of arts partners on the phone, Pat, can you talk a little bit about how Linda, before LCFF and a funding return, how she kind of began to build back the arts?
Yes. So she also started with an arts partner in the community, the Orange County Symphony, and within a year worked with them to offer put back instrumental music classes. she also put together a creativity council that brought all the community partners together, including Disney, which is in their backyard. And so together they started looking at how could they address equity and access. And I think this is important for a community partner to remember that often we've created programs because, you know, we just felt a moral responsibility that kids cannot be without the arts. But our capacity to deliver equity and access across all grades on a weekly or even bi-weekly basis, many times that's not our real mission. The arts ed piece is extra or separate, but important. And so looking at how we can help districts transition to offer equitable arts ed within the school day with credentialed teachers or in partnership with teaching artists, that really enriches our whole community and creates the audiences we're all hoping for. So now, and I think we're going to move now to her LCAP slide.
That would be great. And we're getting close to the end of time, but I do want to just highlight. So with the advent of the local control funding formula, this district did see an infusion of funding. You'll see that they have 58% are English learners and 86% are free and reduced lunch. So Pat, do you want to talk a little bit about how they're sort of scaling their efforts in their LCAP here?
Sure. So I don't know if you're like me, it's a little hard to read the fine print, but luckily this is in your handouts. And I just love how this has gotten laid out because you can see that the district is looking to improve their student achievement by offering arts and music, and you can see the metrics they've listed, and especially how they expect this to benefit English language learners. And again, and I love Christina's phrase of being a solution partner. This is something that there is a high priority for them, and the arts are seen as the solution partner.
Great. So, and I just want to highlight on this LCAP that you can see that they're investing their additional funding on strategies specifically aimed at English language learners. And like Pat said, it's hard to read the fine print, but they're looking at the proficiency levels improving, students attaining proficiency status, and the percent of long-term English language learners decreasing. So I do see we're starting to get some questions coming in. So I want to thank Pat. I want to keep Pat on the line because I think we're going to have a question or two for you and for other panelists. And if we could move to our next slide. I just wanted to quickly touch on some of the things we've talked about, but others is how might we use this information in this document that we've introduced? So we have a little list here of different ways to move the arts forward. And I would say the kind of principles underlining them are to be informed. So to read the LCAP, to find out what's there, to find out the current status of the arts, and go to your superintendent, to your school board, to your parent advisory committee as sort of an educated, collaborative partner. So moving on from there, we are going to go to a poll, and we're going to ask people how they might apply these ideas in their community, and then we're going to continue to answer questions. So see if there's one of those that fits your situation. Maybe you already know what's in your district's LCAP and you're going to think about an ask. Maybe you're on an LCAP committee, or you can find out about when are the next meetings. Great. I love it. So 67% of you say you're going to find out what's in your district's LCAP, determine a specific ask, and join an LCAP committee are right behind. So that's fantastic. I love these percentages. Obviously, you can pick more than one, but this is great. So we do want to kind of provide some support for these actions. So we wanted to open it up to questions and ask people, if they have some, to share those using the control panel. And we actually already have a couple of questions. The first one is, and this question comes up a lot, is how do we find out what our district is doing? Even if we've read the LCAP, how do we know what is happening in our district? What's being offered outside of what's indicated in the plan? And I know, Pat, you could speak to the Arts Ed Data Project, and then maybe if others want to chime in.
Okay. Did you want to show those slides as well? Or?
That sounds great. Melissa, do you want to advance?
Okay. So this is a new tool that's not quite ready yet, but will be in the next couple months. And I don't want to do a deep dive on this. You can find out more about this on our website, createca.net. The California Department of Ed is one of 4 states nationwide that's participating in the National Arts Ed Data Project. And what's exciting about this is this has been 7 years in the works, and it's taking data that the schools already submit every October to the state, and it's creating a display of that in a user-friendly web platform that's been developed by an East Coast company called Quadrant Research. And the goal is to have the entire nation involved in this in the next couple of years. New Jersey was the pilot 2 years ago, so we've got somebody who went ahead of us, and it's California, Ohio, Wisconsin, and North Carolina this year. And if you could show the next slide, Melissa, that'd be great. This is New Jersey, and what it will show is color coding. So at a glance, you can see the counties displayed within New Jersey, and dark green is a lot of arts going on, and dark red means there's not any arts education curriculum happening. The chart over to the left shows you a particular county. So I clicked on that county, and then you can see all the districts in that county displayed, and you can go all the way down to the school level. So Create California's commitment to this is, in order to support California Department of Ed, we have engaged a national communications company to help with messaging and tools, so that by the time this comes out in maybe May, we're thinking it'll be ready to launch, you can take your data and you will have everything you need to successfully approach your district team, your colleagues, and share the data, have a conversation about the data, and then figure out how to improve your data.
Great. That's
coming online.
Great. That's going to be a great tool for advocacy, for people to really see what's going on, and also in addressing issues of equity. Great. So I want to jump in. We've got some questions. I want to jump in with a question. And I've unmuted our panelists so they can chime in. The question is, can you share strategies to work with district curriculum leadership and site leadership on raising their awareness and understanding of the relationship between arts education and cognitive development and student achievement, so that the arts are not considered as, quote, time out of class or marginalized as time for collaboration for teachers?
I would love to be able to answer this question. As an arts partner that was working with the district curriculum leadership team, we came speaking their language. I taught fourth grade, so I understood how to speak about standards, how to discuss time on task, and I was able to verbalize the same words that they understood and wanted to hear. And we were able to get in that way, that we were really there to work with students. It wasn't just fluff time or arts are fun, even though they are. But we also tugged on their heartstrings. We started to have students tell their stories about the music. We had them play music. We had parents participate in conversations, and then we collected data. But our way to really get in and have them to start taking us seriously was to speak their language, know what the Common Core standards are, know what the LCAP is. When you go in there and you understand what they need to keep their district moving forward, then the arts can fit in so much easier.
Great. Anybody else want to chime in on that one?
Hi, this is Sandy. I was just also thinking about sharing arts research, and so on the Arts Ed search, I just actually took a look at it to look at. I put in cognitive development, and I found so many studies I literally couldn't count. So the other thing is to look at some of the research that's been done in that area for those administrators that might relate to that kind of information.
Great. I'm gonna write that into our chat box and share that website you mentioned, Sandy. That's great. So we just got a question in that I'll read for our panelists. It says, I'm a professional actor and dancer and theater and dance teaching artist. I do not have a California teaching credential. How open will the state of California and individual districts be with these new standards utilizing partnerships with non-credentialed teaching artists who already have years of experience?
Oh, great. I wasn't sure if I was still muted. So
go for it.
I would say very receptive, but the key is to go into that relationship looking for how you can help them achieve their goals. Because I think for so long, many of us came up with set programs because we were just, filling such a huge gap. So you want to, and artists are so good at this anyway, where aren't we? We go in and we're so good at collaborating and receiving and thinking through what is it that the school wants to achieve, and to always keep in mind the equity issue. Can you help them go across an entire grade level within a district in order to deliver an equitable arts education? Because that is high on everybody's priority list these days.
Great. And I think, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so this is Sandy. I was just going to say that teaching artists and community arts partners are such a key part of that three-legged stool of delivery between the credentialed arts specialist and the classroom teacher. And so I'm hearing more and more districts partnering with organizations and I think individual teaching artists to help deliver, just as Pat said, for that equity piece. So I see that as a definite possibility.
Great. And here's a question I think that comes up a lot when we get into this territory. One of our attendees has asked, is there a push towards an integrated approach, or can we use the arts for the sake of arts as we discuss this with our district? That's a great question. And I think sometimes arts education, people feel like it's arts education or discrete arts classes. And I think I can say it's definitely not one or the other. But do any of our panelists want to talk about that?
I'll just jump in on a quick thought about, oh, I'm sorry, did I jump in?
You sure did.
You're fine.
Okay, just a quick thought on remembering, how these plans are designed to function and thinking about the goals of the district first. When we're advising people on how to read the LCAPs, to start with the goal, to really think about what is this district trying to accomplish in the long term, and then what is it that's in my particular wheelhouse, what are the strategies and programming that, especially in the arts, that can advance that goal in the most strategic way possible with the maximum benefit for the student. So thinking with the goal in mind first, I think helps to think about what strategies are most effective. In my perspective and in seeing this work in a lot of different districts, it's not generally one or the other, but there's a great pairing and complement having many kinds of strategies.
I completely agree. And in our district, we do have, in our VAPA strategic plan, this is Lauren from Chula Vista, 2 different strands. One that is standards-based sequential arts instruction, and another one that is arts integration for all general classroom teachers. So we understand the importance of having both and complementing each other as students are learning in a more innovative 21st century way.
Great. And I would just say, also in answer to that question, that the California Education Code promises discrete arts classes in all 4 disciplines. So that has not changed, and that's absolutely, still a priority for the California Alliance, and something that advocates can discuss in light of the local control funding formula's priority of giving students a broad access to a broad course of study. We have a question for Pat Wayne, and I want to just acknowledge we're at 4:04, so I know some people may have to go. We are going to stay on for a few more minutes and answer 1 or 2 more questions. We will have the PowerPoint posted online in a few days, and we'll also have an archived recording of this session posted in a few days. So just know those are coming to you in a follow-up email. I also just want to thank our fabulous panelists. I think this is the most panelists we've ever had on a webinar, so I just want to say a big thank you to Sandy, Christina, Megan, Lauren, and Pat, and again to Melissa. And I have a question for Pat, and that is, someone asks, is it worthwhile to establish a county-wide overarching plan, or is it best to go district by district within a county?
So it depends on if you're talking, when you say county, if you mean the County Office of Education, I think it's absolutely critical that the county office that supports the districts within its county has a plan, a VAPA plan, and hopefully a VAPA coordinator. I know that's what caused much of our success in Orange County. Now, if you're talking about a county approach that is spearheaded by an arts council that comes into your districts and says, here's what your plan should look like. I'm Sybil, you might be more aware than me. I'm not sure if that's been tried somewhere in the state and how successful it's been. In our county with 28 school districts, we just found that we did better meeting each district where they were. It was
Right.
certainly more time consuming and labor intensive, but once we got going, it was less and less so. And it allowed that each district to include its stakeholders and its arts partners, and some of our arts organizations who worked all over the county had freed up staff to do multiple district arts planning committees, and you know, that was beneficial. Maybe a little bit hard on them, but it paid off.
Great. So I just want to call people's attention to this slide, which has contact information for all of our panelists. Lauren, we didn't get your permission, so we didn't want to share your email address, but if you send a message to any of us, we can connect you with Lauren. So feel free, we're available for follow-up questions if you have sort of a specific question, a technical question, we'd be happy to talk with you post-webinar. So that's, we're gonna go ahead and close. And I want to thank everyone for being here, and keep an eye out for an email in a couple days that has several of the resources that we shared here today. Thanks so much, everybody. And if you could just leave it on for a minute. And for our staff.
Muted. Unmuted.
Hey panelists, if you're still on the line, we're going to do a quick debrief on the Alliance conference line, and I entered it into the chat. And we still have attendees here, so that's why we're planning to jump off.